Now here's a question. How long has Israel been planning its all-out attack on Iran? What will it consider a success? Is it destroying Iran's deeply bunkered Fordo facility, or is the aim now to go after the Ayatollah himself? I spoke to Danny Sitrinovitz, a former Israeli defense intelligence officer who spent years as the head of the Iran branch in the Research and Analysis Division. He's now a fellow at Israel's Institute of National Security Studies. Danny Sitrinovitz, thank you so much for your time today. Thank you for being here with us.
No, thank you for having me.
I want to start by asking you what your military assessment of how the war is going for Israel so far.
First, we have to say that we have to be very cautious in assessing an event that is unprecedented. Definitely, Israel has major achievements regarding its ability to deprive Iran from nuclear capabilities, degrading its missile capabilities, and of course decapitating the senior military leadership. So definitely those achievements are massive. But on the other hand, we have to remember that Iran is still launching missiles against the state of Israel. And we are maybe on our way to attrition war that I don't think that Israel is able to win. And maybe it's even eroding its major achievements, as I mentioned. So I think that we have to be very cautious. For now, it seems that Israel has the upper hand, but the Iranians still have the capability to launch missiles against the state of Israel. And I don't think that Israel, if it means really to topple the regime, has the capability to do so. So definitely, it's something that we have to take good care and looking at. But even more importantly, in terms of the nuclear side, definitely the fact that Israel cannot destroy Fordo enrichment site. This is another thing that we have to remember that goes against Israel, because despite of the achievement that I already mentioned in the nuclear side, without destroying Fordo, definitely Israel faces an alarming possibility that Iran will cross the threshold to 90% enrichment, meaning military grade, even after all the achievement that we had. So we have to be very cautious. Israel has great achievements, but we have to see how things will develop towards the end of the campaign.
As you mentioned, it is a very unprecedented situation, and things are fast moving and evolving. And part of what's evolving seems to be the war aims, the stated war aims of the Israeli government itself. What do you think would consider success in this situation that would convince Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to end the war?
I think you're touching a very important question, because we have to remember that Israel went to this war for two main reasons. This is what we declared. This is what the Israeli government declared. We want to limit or will destroy the Iranian nuclear capability, and to do the same thing regarding its missile capability. Now, we all know that we cannot destroy the last missile or destroy Fordo for now until the American, if the when will enter. So definitely we have problems in achieving those targets. But I think even more importantly, Israel adopting a new target, talking about killing Khamenei and toppling the regime. So I think so Israel is actually moving for the declared statement regarding the goal of the war, the formal one, to a non-formal but now very clear target of the toppling the regime. The main problem here that Israel doesn't have the ability to really topple the regime only by air superiority. It has to have the American by the side. So without Americans getting in and helping Israel in that, actually, I'm not sure that even if the Americans will topple the regime, they will topple the regime. But I think that the problem is that Israel could find itself in a situation that it has major operational achievement in the first days of the war, but it won't achieve not the clandestine and not the overt targets of the war. So definitely we have to take a closer look what's going on now, but I think that Israel is moving towards toppling the regime.
And we heard that from the defense minister, Israel Katz, this morning. He said that eliminating Khamenei was now a war aim. And you have been very vocally critical of that. You've also been studying Iran for a long time. Why do you think would happen in this situation, in the power vacuum of taking such a move?
Well, I think first you have to remember it's not in the war targets, and the Israeli society is suffering after the government promised them that it will do, like I mentioned, they will cripple the Iranian nuclear and missile capabilities. Nobody talked about toppling the regime. And this is a real threat, because first for Israel, I'm not sure we're able to do so. If we'll try to do so and won't achieve this goal, then we're entering a war of attrition, especially if the Iranians will continue launching missiles against us. So I'm not sure we're able to reach that. But definitely we have to remember Israel is deviating from its long history policy of not killing leaders. And I'm not sure that even if we'll kill Khamenei, things will be better, instead of because of the fact that we don't know what will happen after. Sometimes you prefer with the devil that you know, the devil that you don't know. We can find RGC controlling Iran. We can find Iran suddenly transforming like a puzzle to million pieces, and with a country that actually has nuclear capabilities. We find multiple countries in front of us, multiple minorities. And maybe things actually will be more escalatory, because if Israel will kill Khamenei, it will find all the Shia world in Iraq, in Lebanon, against it. So I'm not sure that we really think that hard in terms of that. I think that we have major achievements. We want to capitalize on those achievements, but I'm thinking that killing Khamenei is one bridge too far.
You have spent a long time working in Israeli intelligence, and a big part of your focus was specifically Iran. And there, if anybody's been paying attention, it's no surprise that Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu specifically has long wanted this conflict, this confrontation with Iran to happen. He's been wanting to bomb Iran, at least saying so publicly, for more than 30 years. When we're talking about this kind of scale of a conflict between Israel and Iran, how long has this attack been in the works? How long has it been studied? How much of a carefully mapped out strategy what is this?
Well, definitely you're not preparing this attack, not in a day, not in a week, and not in a month. The thing that Israel did in the opening attack, in the first stages of the war, was something that you prepare for years. The Mossad activity on the ground, the Air Force activity from the air, simultaneously working to decapitating the senior leadership of Iran. This is something that will take a long, long time to prepare. Now, I don't know when Netanyahu decided to operate that, but I'm sure President Trump has a significant role in that. Because if Netanyahu would have get a green light from Trump to attack, Israel wouldn't attack. Now, definitely, we see now that the Americans are not attacking with us; they're defending the state of Israel. But I think that first and foremost, even though the Americans are not attacking right now in Iran, Israel couldn't go to this attack without U.S. approval. This is why I think that it was a making for years, but it just waited until President Trump was elected. Netanyahu felt it has some sort of a golden moment in terms of approval of the U.S., the weakness of Hezbollah, the weakness of Iran, and of course the information coming out in the nuclear side, weaponization activity of the scientists, and everything was aligned. All the stars were aligned, and he decided to initiate the strike.
Now, what we heard from Prime Minister Netanyahu last week when he launched that attack was that he had intelligence proving that Iran was weeks, even months away from a nuclear weapon. This is contradicting what the US's own intelligence body has been telling them. It also contradicts what the IAEA, the International Atomic Agency, has been saying publicly. Its cynical read on the situation would say that Israel is just using this as a cover of an imminent threat to justify a war that, as you pointed out, has long been in the waiting.
Well, it's a good question because we don't know. We didn't see the information. We didn't see the intel, so we don't know what was in the intel. I think it's safe to say a couple of things. First, I don't think even that Israel claimed that Khamenei ordered to build a bomb. I think even when in the briefing that the intel elements are giving to journalists in Israel, they're saying that the scientists worked for the case of they will be requested to build a bomb. So I think I think there is an understanding that Khamenei didn't order to build a bomb as fast as he can. I think what really happened is that we had scientists that actually returned back to the material of the Ahmad project that closed in 2003 when Iran really tried to build a bomb. They did something. I don't know how much it shortened the time. I think it's the main debate. The core debate is how much it shortened the time for weapons if and when Khamenei would have ordered them to build it. We don't know, but I think this is the heart of the discussion. But because we don't have the information, we don't have the material, we don't know what really happened behind closed doors, it's very hard for me to assess if Netanyahu talked in a way that there was some sort of concrete information about it or assessment. We all know that the intel information built from information, but also from assessment on the information. Maybe the Israel assessed more harshly the information that we had or US had, and the US actually assessed that in more relaxed way, thinking that there is no dramatic change regarding the Iranian nuclear strategy. So the bottom line of things, until we won't see the information itself, we won't know. But I think the truth is somewhere in the middle.
Now, a number of analysts have said that this attack on Iran's facilities and the derailment of nuclear talks with the United States is only going to embolden Iran's resolve to develop a nuclear weapon. If nothing else, then just to create a permanent deterrent against attack. They've already signaled that they might withdraw from the non-proliferation treaty in protest. Do you think that we're now barreling towards that trajectory, that even if it wasn't happening before, that now it's almost a certainty that Iran will consider this option?
Well, definitely we cannot rule it out. We have to say that. This is why I'm saying, well, let's wait with the assessment until the end of the war. Because assuming that, take for example, we don't know what's going on today in Fordo, right? We have our assessment, but with no inspector and inspection regime. Maybe the Iranians that have already the enriched uranium now enriching to 90%, they will hide this material. They have it for use in the future, on the long run. We don't know. This is why when you're attacking a country that were on the verge of enriching to 90%, you're taking a huge risk, a huge gamble. This is why you have to take care of Fordo. So I think that was a major risk that Israel took when it launched the war. And it also goes to the fact that we cannot assess what will be the end because of the fact that we don't know what will happen with Fordo, we don't know what will happen with the spectral beam. I think that regardless of that, we have to have political solution in the end that will assure the fact that the IAEA will continue inspect the sites whenever or wherever they will decide whether to leave the enrichment on Iranian soil or not. It's important. Israel cannot use only the force of the F-35 of the F-15 in order to make sure that Iran won't return back to build this bomb. And like you said, it has the capability because the Iranian nuclear program is indigenous one, meaning that the Iranian knows everything from the mining to the enriching of uranium to 90%. This is why, despite all the achievement that Israel had, we have to have an inspection regime, we have to have political solution that will pave the way to understanding that Iran cannot develop a nuclear bomb. I'm afraid that we believe that our achievements this far were enough, but I think that they are not enough without taking care of Fordo, without building, again, inspection regime that will prevent Iran from reaching a bomb.
And let's look at the reverberations outwards from, as a consequence of this. Will this war also not signal other regional powers, Saudi Arabia, Turkey in particular, that they need to have their own nuclear weapons to protect themselves in the future?
Definitely, the risk of Iran having a nuclear bomb is something that was probably on the mind of the Saudis and the Turks when they thought about advancing their nuclear capabilities. But unfortunately, what's happening now in Iran can signal to them that they have to reach a bomb regardless. Because what we see now is actually major achievements by Israel. Maybe the US will participate. And those countries look at that and saying, okay, today maybe we are supporting the US, but we don't know what will happen tomorrow. They understand that maybe the only way to assure that their regime will survive into the future is acquiring a nuclear bomb. This is why I think that what's happening right now is a problematic for the NPT. We have to make sure the NPT will prevail, meaning a political agreement that will limit Iran's ability to develop a nuclear bomb. This also will signal to the Saudis and the Turks at the end of the day, NPT is a good thing. Without doing so, without leaving that only for the use of force, then maybe they will understand that as well. So regardless what will happen at the end of the war, we have to look at the Saudis, the Emiratis, and especially the Turks to see how this war, if it changed the nuclear strategy. I tend to think that definitely regarding the Turks and the Saudis, this war might change or influence of at least revising, rethinking about their policy.
Now, the elephant in the room here, of course, is Israel's undeclared nuclear weapons program. It's estimated to have around 90 nuclear warheads. It's never joined the non-proliferation treaty, and no nuclear inspector has ever been allowed to investigate their facilities. Now, so in speaking about nuclear power in the region, whether it's Iran or other people, does Israel really have a leg to stand on when it comes to nuclear weapons?
Well, it's very hard to know because officially Israel has no policy like that. There are a lot of reports coming back and forth, but Israel never admit that. So it's very hard to relate to something that Israel never admitted. I think that the problem that we have is less the Israeli alleged nuclear power that, again, we don't know exactly if even something like that it has or not.
But it is true.
The problem
It's
is the
not
NPT.
it's not something that's debated by anybody at this point. I mean,
Yeah.
Israel has never officially, they've promoted this nuclear
Yeah.
ambiguity. But I mean, the former head of the IAEA has called repeatedly for their nuclear facilities to be inspected. There has been more than a dozen UN resolutions that have called on Israel to either give up their nuclear weapons or join the Non-Proliferation Treaty. Of course, there's been leaks famously from some of these underground nuclear weapons facilities. There is plenty of evidence, and most of the world, certainly the region, proceeds as if this is a concrete fact that Israel has nuclear weapons.
Again, as a scientist, I'm not looking as someone, an analyst that's looking at the Middle East. I'm not looking at Israel. So it's very hard for me to assess everything that you mentioned. I have to say something about the NPT side of things. I think that the problem is that a country that not signing the NPT, attacking a country that signed the NPT. And why it's so problematic is because of the fact that it's what it signals to other countries regarding the NPT. And I think that, of course, Iran did a lot of trouble with the IA, whatever. But I think at the end of the day, you have to remember that the NPT needs to be preserved because it's an important treaty that actually preserved the export of nuclear weapons. And what Israel did is actually, this attack is putting this understanding into some sort of a danger. This is why we have to have a political agreement in the end, hoping that Iran will stay in the NPT itself. I think it's an important element, not only for Iran, but for the future.
And what would a possible political solution? I mean, is this the climate at all right now, given the way that Iran has threatened to respond to any kind of intervention from the United States? We're all, of course, still waiting with bated breath to see what U.S. President Donald Trump will decide to do. The Israelis have been calling on him to enter. It is very important for them that he does enter this war. And once he does, of course, things are going to escalate. You've talked about this before as well. What possible hope is there to find any political or diplomatic solution when you're faced with this kind of crisis?
I think Iran wants a political agreement. The question is not if it wants or Tehran wants, and I think also Trump want that. I think the issue is everything related to what will be the deal and whether Iran will be willing to forgo what we call the right to enrich on its soil. That's, I think, the most important thing that will set the tone whether there's going to be agreement or not. If they can find a solution for that, there will be an agreement. And I think the U.S. will force Israel to stop the war. If not, it will be very hard to reach an agreement. And maybe the possibility of the U.S. joining the war will be increased.
Now, Israel, of course, is relying heavily on assistance from the United States in form of anti-defense systems, missiles resupplies, and intelligence. And while we're still waiting for this decision, which may or may not come, how long do you think Israel can continue without direct U.S. support?
I think it's a problem, especially regarding Fordo. We need the U.S. for Fordo. And I think without the U.S. entering the war, we'll find ourselves in the war of attrition. So it's or the U.S. will intervene and find some sort of political solution with Iran to stop the war, or it's to intervene in a way that will destroy Fordo and maybe help Israel, I don't say topple the regime, maybe undermine the regime. It's a dangerous thing, but I think the most dangerous development for Israel is the U.S. not entering the war, Israel trying to topple the regime. We'll find ourselves in an attrition war that will pay a severe price for it. So I think U.S. decision whether to enter or not enter the war will be crucial for how the development will happen regarding this campaign.
Now, when it comes to Iran's view of the region and view of the way that it's been treated over the last weeks, specifically, you hear messages coming out of the EU, certainly from the US, maintaining Israel's right to defend itself and blaming Iran for being the instigator of tensions in the region. How do you think they're looking at the situation, knowing that Israel was the one that provoked this war with them? It's the third time over the last year that Prime Minister Netanyahu has attempted to start this war, and now he's been successful at it. When Iran is looking at the calculus and looking at the way the international world, certainly Europe, is responding, what is incentivizing them to come to some sort of diplomatic agreement?
First and foremost, to secure the future of the regime. They feel that they were betrayed by the U.S., but they understand that without a political solution, the U.S. will intervene in the war and put the regime in danger. So for them, it's not the issue of honor. They want to stop the war, and they need to reach an agreement. And understand, in order to do so, they have to talk with the American side and the E3. For them, this is the strategic goal.